Welcome to scanning for digital imaging. Scanning is so simple, of course, you all know how to do it, but I want to go through it anyway, especially if you're going to be using the scanners in the lab. You can use any scanner you want. If you have a scanner, that's great. If you want to use a library, that's great. If you have access to scanners in Rockefeller, wherever you want to scan, however you want to scan, come down here to the lab. If you come down to the lab, there's two scanners in the lab. There is the V700, which is on one end of the more upright tables, the tables that used to be buffet servers when this was a cafeteria, if you didn't know that. So on the white sort of elevated table, there are two scanners. There's the V700, which is on the end near the fire alarm, fire extinguisher, and lights. And then there's the V600, which is on the other end near the printing room and the locker. They work exactly the same way. They use the same software. And so I'm going to be using the V700 for this demonstration because I'm scanning in something two-dimensional. The V700 is a higher end scanner, so I would like you to use it only for film, photographs, drawings, illustrations, things that are two-dimensional. Do not scan three-dimensional things. And you're saying, why would I want to do such a thing? Because you're going to have an assignment where I'm going to require you to scan in strange things, unusual things, odd things, natural things, digital nature. Use the V600 for that. And if you are scanning anything that could scratch glass or anything liquid, make sure that it is in some kind of container. When we get to digital nature, I will be showing you some examples in which a student used a goldfish. So she brought her prize-winning goldfish. She raised actually show goldfish, didn't know there was such a thing. Brought it down in their bowl and scanned them in the bowl so the water and the fish were contained. I actually had a student scan in puppy dog feet, put a piece of glass down. There's glass in the darkroom. Put down a piece of glass so that the puppy dog doesn't scratch the glass of the scanner. If the scanner glass gets scratched, it's done. It costs more to replace it than to buy a new one. Same thing with things that are liquid. Had students who scanned in water again and gels, so put them either in a Ziploc or bring down some Tupperware or Pyrex or something like that, something glass, to put your things in. I also had a student one year who did their mice for digital nature, and again had them in a glass tray so that their little claws didn't scratch the glass. But don't use the V700 for that. V700 is only for flat things, photographs, drawings, text, that kind of stuff, but not things. All right, so working in the lab. Going into applications, looking for Epson. It's not down here in the dock. Nothing's down here in the dock. You can put it down there in the dock if you would like. EpsonScan right here. First time using it, I'm assuming. First time using it, it's going to come up like this, which is very, very basic. It's assuming that you just want to scan something simple. So it's for the web. So it assumes right here, full auto mode. It assumes you want to do something simple. Go into professional mode and boom, you get more settings. So here, because the scanner can scan negatives, which means that it's going to pass light through the top. So you can say whether it's film and a film holder or film with a film guide. If you do decide you want to scan film, let me know. We do have holders in the locker. And I can work with you individually if you want to do that. But reflective is for, something on paper. Your document source, of course, is a scanning glass. And then what's really important here is it a photo or is it a document? A photo has to be a photo. It has to be a silver gelatin or C print. It has to be a photograph. Anything else is a document. So an inkjet print is a document. Something out of a book is a document, right? So unless it is actually a photograph, you're scanning a document. And why do you have to tell it that? Because documents have something called morié patterns, and I'm going to show you that in this demonstration. So documents have something called morié patterns, and by telling the scanner that you're scanning a document, it knows automatically to correct for that. I think I do a better job. I'm going to show you. So photo or document. I'm going to stay with photo right now because I want to show you what a morié pattern is. How much color? 48 bits, no real reason for that. Photoshop only goes to 16. So 24-bit color is fine, or if you want to do something grayscale because you're scanning in a black and white photograph, we have all that here too. Black and white is black and white, no intermediate grays at all, black and white. It will be like an illustration. What size do you want? I'm eventually going to print at 300. That's what the Canons will print at. So I'm going to start at 600 because I'm going to show you what a morié pattern is and how to get rid of it. And then we've got all this stuff here, which seems like Photoshop stuff, right? So by telling it it's a photograph, we don't necessarily have to worry about any of these things. But when we tell it it's a document, notice that a lot of these things get grayed out. Why? Because the scanner's doing the work for you to get rid of that morié pattern. But when you're doing a photograph, you can have your descreening. What kind of descreening do you want? What resolution? These are lines per inch as opposed to pixels, dots per inch up here. Color restoration, backlight, dust removal. You know, all these things are fancy little things to help fix a photograph if you have issues with your photograph. But of course, when you're in document, all that stuff goes away except for descreening. Why? Because if you're scanning a document, it assumes you're scanning from a newspaper, a magazine, or a fine print. And it's going to do the work for you. Like I said, I'm going to show you that soon. All right, I'm going to go into photo, and I'm not going to set a document size because it's going to do it when it previews. I'm going to go get something to scan. On the back wall of the lab is a whole bunch of books. These are what are called stock photo books. Once upon a time, designers or whoever was making a project would go through these, and if there was a photograph they needed to use, they would call this company. This company is Gold, New York Gold, and this is actually of people. So if you wanted to have a scan of this cute little girl holding a ball and you wanted to put it in your annual report, you would call 212-727-7450 and ask for Joel Polito's image of a little girl holding a ball. Oh, I like this pouty little kid. I'm going to scan him. All right, this pouty little kid who's Dennis Gallant Studios, I guess. All right, so I'm going to scan this little kid. So I'm raising the scanning bed. You guys can't see this, but you all know how to do this. Raising the scanning bed, and I'm putting it down. I'm not going to do a great job because this is a book, and it just sort of fell off. So I'm going to hit preview. And there's that pouty little kid. So 600 DPI, because eventually it's going to be 300 because I'm going to shrinky dink it. What does that mean? I'm going to draw around the area I want to scan. I'm going to scan this guy. Circle around what I want. You can rotate and do all this stuff here too, but it's all the way that I want it to be. And I'm going to go ahead and scan it. And immediately, where is it going to go, right? So if you have your USB hard drive, whatever you've got here, you want to choose it. This is really important because I have people who do this all the time. They scan it, they don't pay attention to this. It goes into the pictures folder in their user ID. So they have to go back here and go out here and figure out where home is. Go home. And then there's pictures, and it'll be in here, right? So you have to pay attention to where it's scanning to, right? What do you want it to be? No, we don't want it to be a JPEG. Why would we want it to be a JPEG? Yeah, I would throw out stuff. We don't want it to be a JPEG. So I'm going to go ahead and make it a TIFF. Photoshop is no longer an option. Once upon a time, it would scan as a Photoshop file and directly open up into Photoshop, which was really nice. They don't do that anymore. So TIFF. Where is it going? To the desktop. I'm just going to choose that for now, even though that's not a good place to put it for you guys. I'm going to say OK. For all you guys who were in Color and Light last semester, notice that it has a profile. Had a profile embedded into it. All right, so where is it? It's up here behind my balance. So I'm gonna go ahead and open this up with Photoshop. My first time using it, so I have to log in. And you all can see it. There's the morié pattern. Okay, I'll zoom in so you can really see it. Now sometimes this can be cool. You may want to use this at some point for maybe the found image collage, next project. But this is a morié pattern. So what's happening is that when the book was printed, because I scanned this from a book, when the book was printed, the printer press had a screen on it, halftone screen. And so what's happening is that the scanner also has a halftone screen, but it's not the same one. So the two screens kind of like overlap each other and it creates this pattern, right? So literally a halftone screen has scanned a halftone screen and we get what's called a morié pattern. So I'm going to manually get rid of this. I'm going to show you how. I call it the shrinky dink way, if you know what shrinky dinks are. So I scanned it in twice as big as I need it to be because I'm going to get rid of the pattern by blurring it, then I'm going to shrink it, and then I'm going to sharpen it. So first what I want to do is I want to get rid of the pattern. So I'm going to go into a filter, and I'm going to go to blur, and I'm going to go to Gaussian blur. Everything that's got a dot, dot, dot has more than one option to it, so I don't want to just blur or blur more. I want to do Gaussian blur so I can decide how much I want to blur it by. So 1 pixel of blurring right here did a pretty good job. I want to try and keep it as low as I can. So let's see what 1.25 does. Better. 1.5. Better. 7.5. A lot better. Can still see it. Let's go to 2. I don't want it too, see 12 would be too much. I don't want it too blurry, just enough to get rid of the pattern. I can still sort of see it around his nose, and especially if we come up here. I can still kind of see it there. 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4. Looks like we're going to 5, right? 2.5. Okay, so it's kind of blurry. Remember this number, 2.5. So I'm going to say, okay, doing a little blur of 2.5. Now I'm going to shrink it. I'm going to go into image size. And I'm just going to take the resolution from 600 to what I want, 300. Now I'm going to sharpen it. So I blurred it, now I'm going to sharpen it. So I'm going to go to sharpen, and I'm going to go to unsharp mask, dot, dot, dot. It's got manual elements. And I'm going to do the radius the same that I blurred it. Okay, so 2.5. Amount does this. We don't want too much of that. Kind of looks HDR. I usually stay around, I was at 50, I believe. I don't go ever maybe past 75. Show you what 75 looks like. I like 50. 50 is fine. Threshold does this. So we don't really need threshold. Right? Blurs a little bit more. So I'm going to keep it at 50, maybe go up to 75, and I'm going to do the radius the same. Okay? So here's my corrected morié pattern. I can still see it a little bit up here. Little bit up here. Maybe should have gone a little bit farther. Maybe. But I don't know what I'm going to use him for. But he looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. Now I'm going to go back. I'm going to scan it again at 300. I'm going to tell the scanner that it's a document. And all these things go away. Except for unsharp mask. And now we know what unsharp mask is, right? So it was a pretty big morié pattern. So I'm gonna try medium. Medium should be good. And then descreening, we want that, and we're gonna tell it it's fine art print. It's not a magazine, it's not a newspaper. It's definitely a fine art print. So we're gonna go ahead and tell the scanner it's document, so you take care of the morié pattern. I'm gonna give it an unsharp mask of medium, because you know it was a pretty defined one, but not too bad. It's not like a newspaper. Newspapers will be very bad because they're bad quality, low quality. And then we're gonna say fine print. And we're gonna go ahead and say scan. I haven't moved it, so everything's still in the same place. Now it's gonna be numbered 2, same location, desktop. Say okay. Let it scan it. Depending on what resolution you're scanning at, this could take a long time. Because the scanner's doing work, it can sometimes take a little bit longer, but I took it down to 300 instead of 600, so it may not take too long. Notice that it's got that profile. And now I'm going to open up this one. And compare them. I like mine better, don't you? So that's the difference of me doing it versus the machine. Now the machine did a better job in that little sort of blurry area compared to mine. No, it's kind of similar. But the contrast of mine is better, the colors of mine is better, everything's a little bit better than the machine doing itself. But that's the way it goes, right? So this is scanning in the IGO lab. The other scanner works exactly the same way. Like I said, 700 for two-dimensional objects, things out of books, photographs, film, and then the V600 for everything else. That's all. Bye.